Alright, let's just jump into it. We start off episode 9 on board the Millennium Falcon deep in space. The Resistance realizes that their numbers are way too small to even come close to combating the First Order. That's when Rey decides that she's going to take a look into the ancient Jedi text that she stole in order to find some sort of method. This is when she discovers the weird time travel thing from Star Wars Rebels. You know, the one with the weird pathways and the cool looking gate. Anyway, so they decide to go to that. Meanwhile, Kylo Ren, through that weird Force connection, realizes what they're going to do, and he's going to call upon the rest of the Knights of Ren to help him out. So they both go on the planet at the exact same time, and they try to fight over the gate and see who gets it. This is when most of the Knights of Ren will die. Because let's face it, there's so little stuff that's built up over who they are. There's this grand mystery, but let's face it, none of us really care who they are. At this point, they're only there for cannon fodder. So they die. The only surviving Knight of Ren is Kylo. During that whole debacle, I think it's Rey I believe it is Rey who opens it because someone needs to be Force sensitive in order to open it, according to Star Wars Rebels. So she opens the gate, and that's when everyone starts flooding in, and they try to figure out where they are. They're on that weird pathway, and this is sort of the area where we discover Rey's backstory, including who her parents are. We discover Snoke's backstory. We finally figure out who he really is. On top of that, we can throw in a couple extra things, like some added stuff about, like, the new fallen Jedi Order brought up by Luke becoming the Knights of Ren or something on the lines of that. And during this whole time travel debacle, we just so happen to run into Palpatine, because, we're time traveling way into the past. It's not like we're going 15 years. We're going all the way back. Some of the stuff is even going back to the, A New Hope stuff. There's a scene where Kylo Ren runs into Darth Vader, similar to how Peter Parker ran into Mary Jane in that one scene of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But it doesn't really matter. That's just there for fan service. The same reason why they're even time traveling to the past to begin with. So they come across Emperor Palpatine during all this stuff, and he senses both Kylo and Rey, and that's when he attempts to seduce Kylo even further to the dark side, even though he's basically a Sith already. He basically says something on the lines of, "I sense your power. You are gifted in the powers of the dark side. Come to my place and we shall rule the galaxy." And Kylo's like, you know what? I'm going to be on the light side now, because during this whole time travel stuff, I realized I was wrong. That's when he dies. Yeah, Palpatine is just going to flat out kill Kylo Ren with Force lightning and maybe a lightsaber. I don't know. But yeah, Kylo's going to die. Like, we all saw that coming. We're all seeing it coming. Everyone's saying they better not kill off Kylo, because we all know he's going to die in this movie. Because once he turns to the light, that's it. His character is done. And then then he turns to Rey and he says, "Ooh, but you are even more powerful. You are unexperienced, child. Come, take your place at my side. For you need a teacher, and I can teach you the full power of the Force." And Rey's gonna be like, "No, you're bad, and I'm going to kill you now, because you're the reason why all my friends are dead." And Palpatine's like, "Well then, I'm afraid that's not going to work out," or some stupid reason. They fight, Palpatine dies, and then because of some stupid reason, at the end of the movie, Rey is like, "Hey guys, during that whole debacle, I sort of realized who I am. I must go to Tatooine, but I gotta go through the time travel thing." And she ends up in the time period before Star Wars Episode 1, and you all know about the stupid fan theory. So that's what I believe is going to happen in Star Wars Episode 9. But why? Well, it's mainly based off of one fact, and that being that Lucasfilm is under the same company that owns Marvel. And Marvel is very successful. The MCU is very successful. I mean, just take a look at Avengers Endgame. It is now the top grossing movie ever. And that's saying something. And what did Avengers Endgame do? They time traveled. And it got unnecessarily complicated. This is very similar to basically what Lucasfilm has become to begin with. If you take a look at recent movies in Star Wars, you'll notice that it follows a very similar path to Marvel, where they're releasing at least one film annually. They're releasing so much content because that's how it works just fine for Marvel. So obviously it's going to work fine for Star Wars. And for some, it works out. For most people, no. Star Wars is not like Marvel. It needs to be more fleshed out, I feel like, in my opinion. You can't just rush Star Wars, but then again, you can't rush anything. That's why Endgame was terrible. That's why Infinity War wasn't that great. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I don't like the Thanos Infinity War Endgame stuff all that great. I think they're overrated. They have some good qualities, but I'm getting off topic. My point is, they're very similar, and I would not be surprised if they conclude the story in a similar fashion to Endgame. Because think of it like this. The main protagonists at the end of Star Wars The Last Jedi are actually in a very similar situation compared to the protagonist in the MCU, where their numbers are greatly diminished by Thanos and the First Order. So to the point where they can't even think about fighting them anymore. Well, it was for different reasons in Endgame. My point is, they have to time travel in order to solve their problems. Also, Star Wars The Last Jedi, I imagine, is going to be unnecessarily long. You can conclude this story in like an hour and 30 minutes, but it's going to be like 2 hours, 10 minutes or something like that. It's not going to, that doesn't sound that long, but it's going to feel like 5 freaking hours because it's not going to be that interesting to begin with. So that's my whole fan hypothesis, theory, whatever you want to call it, on what I think is going to happen. It's not going to be good. I guess all we can do now is hope that I'm wrong.